Jesus came for everyone. Today, we celebrate what we call the Epiphany of Jesus. That is, the revelation or the manifestation of Jesus for everyone. Jesus was revealed by the Father to the world as its Savior when the light of a star guided the wise men, the Magi, from the east to worship him. When the Father spoke from heaven at Jesus' baptism, declaring Jesus to be his beloved Son, and when Jesus performed his first miracle at Cana. So we sometimes speak of three events in the Epiphany, or revelation of Jesus to the world as our Savior: the visit of the Magi, the baptism of Jesus, and the wedding feast at the miracle of Cana. Today, we celebrate the light of a star, leading and revealing Jesus as the Savior of the world to the Magi. They were not members of the chosen Jewish people, so the Epiphany shows Jesus came for all people. The body language of the Magi before Jesus spoke of their attitude. They prostrated themselves before Jesus. They worshiped him and offered him the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Gold because Jesus is King. Frankincense because Jesus is divine. And myrrh, prefiguring his passion. There is another attitude in today's gospel, the attitude of Herod. He does not have an attitude of reverence or respect for Jesus. Herod pretends that he is just as respectful to Jesus as the Magi. He tells them, "Go and search diligently for the child. When you have found him, bring me word, that I too may go and do him homage." However, his thoughts were not thoughts of homage. He merely wanted to trick the Magi into telling him where Jesus was, so that he could have him murdered. Herod did not want to lose power and control to somebody else. So he rejected the baby Jesus, even though Jesus would be no threat to his kingly power. Herod's problem was not Jesus, but Herod himself. And some people's problem is not Jesus or the church. Herod said to the wise men, to the Magi, "Go and search diligently for the child. When you have found him, bring me word, that I too may go and do him homage." He was speaking to the Magi with a forked tongue. He was telling lies. The baby Jesus was surrounded in Bethlehem by those who worshiped him. But in Jerusalem, there was a crowd of liars. They said one thing, but meant the opposite. Truth was lacking. In our own time, we see this being played out in many walks of life. But it is easier to see it in the world of the media and even in politics today. A few years back, Cardinal Timothy Dolan wrote a beautiful article in the Wall Street Journal on the new healthcare law. He wrote, and I quote, "Hundreds of religious institutions and hundreds of thousands of individual citizens have raised their voices in principled opposition to the requirement that religious institutions and individuals violate their own basic moral teaching in their health plans, coercing religious ministries and citizens to pay directly for actions that violate their teachings in an unprecedented incursion into freedom of conscience. The Catholic Church defends religious liberty, including freedom of conscience for everybody. The Amish do not carry health insurance. The government respects their principles. Christian scientists want to heal by prayer alone, and the new healthcare reform law respects that. Quakers and others object to killing even in wartime, and the government respects that principle for conscientious objectors. Cardinal Dolan went on to write that the federal administration has failed to show the same respect for the consciences of Catholics and others who object to treating pregnancy as a disease. This is just one example, my brothers and sisters, of many, that in which it could be argued that the events of the gospel are played out even today. The next step after the lies, deception, and the double speak was Herod trying to kill the baby Jesus, because Herod completely misunderstood what Jesus meant. In the massacre of the holy innocents of Bethlehem, Herod had all the boys in Bethlehem under the age of 2 killed. In the case of Herod, it was only one further step from his double speak to persecution and murder. We might want to ponder, or we might wonder, actually, if similar trials may lie ahead for the church in many parts of the world. Today, in some places, we hear the preaching of Catholic moral norms being described as hate crimes. Catholic moral norms that were taken for granted and normal until just recently are now being labeled as hate crimes by some. It has taken just a small number of years for this to develop, and we might wonder if we are heading back to a persecution of the church and martyrdom like the early church in Rome and what they experienced. My brothers and sisters, Jesus came for everyone, as today's feast teaches us. But some have rejected Jesus and his church. Herod's problem was not Jesus, but Herod himself. He was not truthful, and the truth is compromised in many ways today also. On the other hand, the response of the Magi to Jesus is a model of our reflection. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother. They prostrated themselves and did him homage. Then they opened their treasures and offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And today we also should offer him our heart as gold, frankincense, and myrrh.